Hi everyone, glad you're here. Today, I'm sharing a story that begins quietly, but ends with a reckoning no one saw coming. My name is Richard. When my father-in-law fired me, and my wife walked out right after, neither of them imagined what would follow. They thought they could shatter my life and move on untouched. But that's not how this ends. You're about to hear everything, from the calm before the storm. And when we're through, you'll understand why I never raised my voice. I didn't have to. Long before I ever met Vivian, I was already working for her father. He brought me into his company as a creative strategy lead. My job was to turn ideas into action. I helped marketing and research sync up, use data to power innovation, and shape the company's future. My strategies earned respect. My name had weighed in boardrooms. Back then, I didn't know how fragile it all was. One evening, our team was invited to a thank-you dinner at the CEO's home. Just a few hours, some good food, small talk. Nothing special, or so I thought. That night changed everything. It's when I met Vivian. She wasn't just beautiful, she radiated presence. Confidence. She didn't look at me like an employee. She listened, asked questions, and something between us clicked, like we already knew each other in a different life. But nothing simple in her world. Her father had plans. He'd already lined up someone from their elite circle, a name that would add to his legacy. I wasn't that guy. I came from a different world, and to him, that was reason enough. I understood. I wasn't about to force myself into a space where I wasn't welcome. So I told Vivian the truth. If choosing me meant losing her father, I'd walk away. I'd rather break my own heart than be the cause of that divide. But she wouldn't let me. Vivian looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I'm not living a life built on someone else's choices." She told me she loved me, and she wasn't giving me up. Her father, cold, calculating, knew better than to push too hard. So he gave in, not out of approval, but out of fear of losing her. We got married. The wedding was a spectacle. Politicians, CEOs, media elites. He played the role of proud father. But when he shook my hand, it was ice. A performance, not warmth. And that chill? It only deepened. At first, I was just the new son-in-law. Tolerated, never embraced. In public, they smiled. Behind closed doors, I was invisible. And while things at home grew colder, work got hotter. He kept me at the company, but I was walking into a trap. Tasks piled up. Deadlines shrank. I thought he was testing me. But in meetings, he shredded my ideas. Publicly, brutally, like a professor trashing a bad essay. Even when those same ideas had worked. Even when they brought real results. It wasn't pressure. It was sabotage. Still, I didn't complain. Vivian was close to him. I didn't want to poison that bond. So I kept my head down and kept building. Longer hours. Sharper pitches. Tighter campaigns. I stayed ahead. And the numbers backed me. Growth, savings, innovation. But none of it mattered. When we won, it was the team. When we failed, it was me. Slowly, I was being boxed out. Discredited. My voice lost in rooms I used to lead. It was never about the work. It was about control. At home, Vivian had once been everything. Warm, vibrant, loyal. But over the years, something shifted. One night, during a fight, she looked at me and said, "Maybe you don't value me." Not like a question, like a verdict. I did value her. I loved her. But I'd been drowning in work, in pressure, in proving myself to her father, and I hadn't been fully present. Instead of coming closer, she pulled away. Even when I tried to reconnect, she'd vanished to events or parties. Her style changed. Her world began orbiting around high society and shallow connections. It was like she was becoming someone else, someone molded by her father's vision. I couldn't shake the feeling he was behind it all. He had a way of making poison sound like advice. But I had no proof. Just a sinking feeling and growing silence. One evening, she was in the kitchen, flipping through photos from another gala. She showed me something she found cute. The screen dimmed. I instinctively tapped it to brighten. I swiped by accident. And there it was. A photo of her lying on the chest of another man. Not just any man. One of the company's top executives. The same man who'd blocked my promotions, questioned my every move. Her father's mouthpiece. Her reaction? Immediate panic. She ripped the phone from my hand like it was burning. Stormed out of the room, like I'd done something wrong. I followed her, of course. I asked her, what did I just see? I needed the truth. But all I got was smoke and mirrors. She got defensive, told me I was imagining things. Said I must have swiped into some old photo she saved by mistake. that I was always jumping to conclusions. And the worst part? She refused to show me the phone again. Kept it locked, like the truth needed a password. I stood there, made to feel insane, for reacting to something I saw with my own eyes. That night didn't just crack my marriage. It cracked open everything, especially what had been happening at work. Because the man in that photo, he was the same executive who had been slowly, silently dismantling my reputation at the company. The one blocking my moves, spreading whispers, sowing doubt. Suddenly, the picture was clear. He wasn't just sabotaging my work. He was sleeping with my wife while he did it. I didn't explode. I didn't tell anyone. I just unplugged, because I knew the storm was coming, and I needed to be ready, alone. From that point on, I backed up everything. Every project, every pitch, every concept I had ever contributed to. I stored it all on encrypted drives only I could access. Then, I stopped giving them my best. No more golden ideas on paper. No more building their future while they quietly erased mine. And sure enough, the hammer came down. A major campaign I had led suddenly leaked. Sensitive files, blueprints, strategy reports, leaked to the press. The backlash was immediate. Clients furious, partners embarrassed, and fingers all pointed at me. They said it was my failure, my carelessness, but I knew better. It wasn't a mistake, it was sabotage. Still, no one defended me. Not a single voice in that boardroom stood up. A week later, I walked in for what I thought was a standard performance review. But the moment I saw the faces in that room, HR, my father-in-law, the executive who betrayed me, and a lawyer I didn't recognize, I knew what it was. No small talk, just a folder, a statement, and the words, "You failed to meet expectations." Effective immediately, you're terminated. I sat there, silent, not because I had nothing to say, but because none of it would have mattered. They handed me a severance package, as if it could ever repay what they stole. Still dazed, I left. Called Vivian. She didn't answer. Not once. Straight to voicemail. I texted her. Nothing. When I got home, the message was loud and clear. My things, boxed and stacked by the door. My clothes folded. My shoes lined up like I was being politely erased from my own life. Vivian stood in the hallway, arms crossed. No emotion. No warmth. She didn't even let me speak. Just said, "It's time for a fresh start." Then, she handed me a brochure. For homeless shelters. I looked at it. Then back at her, wondering if this was some cruel joke. But it wasn't. I was a stranger she'd finally scraped off her life. And because the house had been a gift from her father, technically company-owned. Once I was out of the company, I was out of the house too. Still, I said nothing. Not because I was broken, but because I knew there was no point. So I picked up my things, walked out of the house I used to call home, and left it all behind. Honestly, I thought that was it. I knew things were bad, but not like this. How do you recover after losing your job, your marriage, your home, and your name, all in one hit? I was at rock bottom. No pretending. But then something unexpected happened. A few days later, calls started trickling in, quietly, under the radar. Hiring managers, executives at rival firms, people who'd heard what happened and didn't believe the official story. Some had worked with me. Others had admired my results from a distance. Now that I was free, they wanted in. But there was a problem. My termination came with a clause, strict and binding. I couldn't work in the same industry. No jobs. No consulting. Nothing. They thought they'd box me in for good. But here's what they missed. They thought because I was gone, I had nothing left to offer. What they didn't realize was that the real asset was never on their servers. It was in me. I still had the blueprints, the systems, the creative engines I'd built from scratch, the ones that powered their success. And I had held back my best ideas for this very reason. Soon, I started noticing signs of panic. People from my old team began reaching out, casually at first. "Hey, man, remember that projection model from last quarter? Any chance you still have the adaptive campaign sketch?" They weren't slick. I saw right through it. They were drowning. Their new guy had no idea what he was doing, and without my foundation, he was watching the walls crumble. Then came the game changer. A multinational company, based in the Netherlands, reached out through a third party. They didn't care about NDAs or corporate politics. They cared about what I could bring to their table. So I gave them everything. The systems, the frameworks, the creative structures that once gave my old company its edge. Only now, I made them even better. And when they launched, it hit the market like a tidal wave. They didn't just compete, they dominated. Within months, their market share doubled, then tripled. My old company, bleeding clients, losing relevance. Their edge gone. Their secrets, now someone else's weapons. By the time the money started rolling in, I had already cut every tie that once held me down. The company paid me millions. Now, I live freely. Amsterdam, Tokyo, Cape Town. No fixed address. No pressure. No deadlines. No silent wife. No backstabbing father-in-law. Just peace, and the proof that I was never the problem. I was the power they underestimated. No more fake smiles. No masked enemies pretending to be allies. Just me, peace, and a kind of freedom most people never taste. But as I found stillness, their world began to crack. The desperation leaked through the polished smiles and curated emails. First, it was polite. Forced. We'd love to explore a possible collaboration. Then came the half-hearted apologies. Let's start fresh. Misunderstandings happen. Next, they dropped the mask completely. Please, Richard. The company needs you. Vivian wants to talk. Can we set up a call? One message even dared to say, we were wrong. But you have to understand, it was never personal. Funny. They only remembered my worth when my absence started bleeding them dry. My inbox became a museum of regret. Every message a silent confession. But I never replied. I didn't need to. Now, standing on the other side of it all, I've learned a few things. First, loyalty without boundaries. It'll scorch you. I gave too much without ever asking if it was being honored. Second, never let guilt talk you out of your instincts. I knew something was wrong, but I bit my tongue to keep the peace. That silence nearly shattered me. Third, protect your value. Not every gift needs to be unwrapped by the ungrateful. Keep something sacred for yourself. And finally, revenge isn't always noise and chaos. Sometimes it's just you winning, quietly, while they sit in the wreckage they built. So let me ask you, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Gone back? Tried to fix it? Or would you have done what I did? Walked away and built something bigger in silence? Because here's the truth. They thought they were ruining me, but all they did was force me to evolve.